So Let's Plays are a thing. If you're on YouTube and you're watching this video, then you're probably very aware that Let's Plays are a thing, so where am I going with this? Well, it's almost Spooktober, and that means I somehow need to once again find a way to circumvent the fact that I don't really enjoy anything to do with horror. That's a bit of an issue during the season that celebrates horror, especially for a channel rooted in the philosophy of media. So, what to do for Spooktober when you're a dude that doesn't like horror? Let's Plays. But actually, it was while racking my brain for ideas on a Spooktober episode that I started to realize that I have a lot of thoughts about horror movies, and even more thoughts about horror games, which seems backwards since I don't really engage with them. The last horror game I played was Fatal Frame, and... Nope, big old bag of nopes. But I was surprised to find that I actually had quite a bit of knowledge about the horror video game landscape despite not playing them, until I realized that I don't dislike horror video games, I just dislike playing them. Well, what the fuck does that even mean? It means I find the story and the spookiness fascinating, possibly in a morbid masochistic way, but I don't enjoy the act of being scared, and so in the past I used to watch my older brother play them, but when he moved away I was left with a void that was filled by the advent of YouTube, which provided a platform for people to play video games on, people who we now call Let's Players. And it was here that I found people who were brave, or stupid enough, to play horror video games. I was too chicken shit to play them, but I found I could watch and enjoy horror games in a way that I was unable to do so when I was on my own. And it's not because my brain is fucked. Or it's not only because of that. It's because of a few factors like the history of Let's Plays and their link to horror, how games interact with the players, how Let's Players change the experience of video games, and the community and interactions that surround these creators. And so today, I want to talk about Let's Plays. The history of Let's Plays is kind of convoluted, mostly because it comes down to the question of what the actual fuck a Let's Play is. If you play the definition loosely enough, then walkthroughs count, as they're screenshots from the game with written text on how to beat it or helpful tips. This was then extended to everyday people posting screenshots of their own playthroughs in the early 2000s. This also included the addition of subjective lines of text reacting to the game, with the explicit invitation for audiences to join in the decision-making the player made as part of their play. That's the part that makes it a Let's Play and not a me play or an I play. I play. I feel like Apple would have trademarked that anyway. Let's Plays in this forum were not popular and were mostly relegated to a small community on the forum site called Something Awful. But what's notable is that horror games were featured very early in the history of Let's Plays, and were also extremely popular in the communities. Specifically the series I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream, which dominated the forums and boosted the popularity of the art form. Not only is this a horror game that was loosely based on the frankly disturbing short story by Harlan Ellison, it was also the first Let's Play to include a video component. The last leg of the game and its ending were posted to the forum as a downloadable video. Although it was not convenient to watch the video as it required a huge download time, something about the intersection of the horror genre and this new way to enjoy video games really worked. After a few years and the slow and kind of painful migration to other platforms, seriously, the community on Something Awful were just as the website name implied. We now have Let's Plays on YouTube and live on Twitch, where hugely popular personalities interact with massive communities to play and complete games. Not only has the range of games and genres become varied, but even the amount of Let's Players is vast. If you want stupid comedy and a good time, then check out the Game Grumps or Super Mega. Just don't expect them to actually finish games because they're first and foremost about the comedy. But on the other hand, you can watch Brianna White play Final Fantasy VII, a game in which she voices Aerith, and you too can experience the unadulterated joy of her reactions to hearing her character. It is the most heartwarming thing on the internet. I just want to hug you, Brianna, but like in a consensual way. But through all of this genreification, diversification, and mass dissemination, horror has remained a staple of Let's Plays. No matter what kind of Let's Player you enjoy watching, unless they only stream or record one kind of genre or a single game like Minecraft, I'll bet that they have played a horror game, almost without exception. And as for Minecraft, there have got to be horror mods for that game because there is every kind of mod for that game.
God, that's scary! Minecraft is a scary video game.
But the rise of modern Let's Play personalities is also heavily linked to the horror genre. One of the biggest names in Let's Plays and on YouTube in general is Markiplier, who gained a fair amount of fame by playing through the internet-spawned Slender games, and later solidified his place on YouTube as the king of Five Nights at Freddy's. And this is just one example. So what is it about the combination of Let's Plays and horror that worked so well? Well, I would argue that this relationship is actually symbiotic. There was a while there in the early to mid 2010s where major video game publishers decided, arbitrarily I might add, that horror was not a genre that was popular. The root of this was likely because the draw of making money on multiplayer action shooters was more important to them, and therefore resources should not be wasted on single-player horror games. As a result, there was a drought of horror games. Everyone thought that the genre was too niche, and because of this, there was a myth that the genre was not profitable and was basically dead in the video game format. But of course this was not true, because in the world of Let's Plays, horror games were thriving. With no large publishers creating games, Let's Players were forced to look elsewhere to find the scares that they and their communities were constantly jonesing for. What a perverse group of people. As the obstacles of game creation were slowly being reduced, anyone with a little time and patience could create a game on Unity or Unreal or even RPG Maker. These small-scale and low-budget projects made it hard for independent creators to produce high-concept or action-heavy games. But with limitation comes creativity. And in the movie industry, the genre that has the lowest cost to produce is horror, and this is the same for video games. There were and are a lot of horror games being produced, but at the time of the early 2010s, indie horror and survival horror games were huge. And this was because the Let's Players were scouring the internet to find scary games, and as they played them, not only did they have content, but they were also promoting the games. The aforementioned Slender series is a great example of this. The creature, the game, and its popularity are all products of the internet's strange cycles of creation and perpetuation. All of a sudden, large-scale horror games like Amnesia, The Dark Descent, and the first Dead Space were huge hits, and the video game industry realized something that the rest of the world already knew: horror was super popular. And now you can't log on to the internet without seeing 3 or 4 horror games. Get out of here. I don't have time to play you all. The fabric of modern horror games and Let's Plays are deeply connected, and I for one am glad that Let's Plays reinvigorated the horror genre. But that still leaves the question, why does horror work so well for Let's Plays? If you're anything like me, you might find that you're scared shitless every time something remotely terror-related appears in fictional media. No joke, there are episodes of Doctor Who that scare me. But there's a reason that Let's Plays work, and it has everything to do with how video games are enjoyed as an art form. When you watch a scary movie, the movie is designed to be watched, and so in any context that you watch it, the story and scares are based around the audience experiencing the sights and sounds. Whether you watch a horror movie by yourself, why would you ever do this, or watch it with others or even in a crowded theater, the medium is still effective because it's designed to be watched in any capacity. Video games, on the other hand, are different. The game may be presenting a story, but a lot of the fear is directed at the player. The trepidation of exploration, the consequences of every action, and the potential for spooky danger around every corner. Horror games are mostly exclusive single-player games because being alone is way more daunting. With even one more person playing, you have someone looking out for you. But when you're alone, you are that much more vulnerable, and this is a basic human fear. This is something the player has to contend with, which means if you're not the player, then part of the pressure of the game is off, and the horror elements are not pointed directly at you. As I watch Markiplier play Outlast, the game is still scary, but because he's the one experiencing the effects of the game head on, I feel less afraid. You might even say that watching Markiplier play Outlast is a way for me to hide behind him. All of the scares are aimed at him, and I can watch him deal with it, but I can still see how the story unfolds and enjoy the game even when I'm not the one playing it. Not only does this disassociation make me feel less pressure, but I also get the thrill of playing the game through something called vicarious play. Vicarious play is part of how audiences engage with art. This is the same concept that occurs when we empathize with a character in a movie. We identify or experience their emotions through sympathy and empathy, and that makes it easy to understand what they're going through as events happen to them. We also do this with video games, but we can literally place the player in charge of the character, and make the gameplay reflect the feelings of the character onto the player. That's good game design. When watching somebody else play the game, we may lose some of the intentional effects of this design, but we experience it in a different way through vicarious play with the player rather than the character. We are experiencing the game in a less direct way, but we also experience the reactions and commentary of the Let's Player.
It's corpses! It's all corpses! Everything about you is corpses! Ah!
This is vicarious play, which actually increases our sense of attachment to the game, but as a different kind of gameplay experience. The reactions and commentary of the Let's Player are super important due to vicarious play, but also because of parasocial interactions. This is similar to vicarious play, but parasocial interactions are the kind of social interactions that occur between a disassociated audience to a personality. Sometimes fictional, but this can occur with celebrities or anyone that you don't really know in a personal sense. You haven't met them, but you still interact with them. Think of the way you become attached to a character in a book and are sad when the book ends because you don't get to spend time with them. You aren't actually spending time with them, but you read or hear about them and you become attached to them, like a friend. That is a parasocial relationship, and it also occurs with Let's Players that you follow. And I promise this is normal and not as creepy as I'm making it out to be. Part of the appeal of a Let's Player is their personality and the interactions that occur when you watch them play a game. There are many Let's Players now, and many of them play the same games, but that doesn't matter because every Let's Player brings a different reaction and parasocial interaction. You could watch Alana Pierce play Resident Evil 8.
Mia, get down!
What the heck?
Mia!
Oh my god.
And then switch over and watch Jacksepticeye play the same game.
Mia, get down! Mia!
What is happening?
Completely different experiences because their personalities and reactions change the Vicarious play. Their personality actually adds to the experience of the game. I have two favorites. When I want to watch horror games for the story, I like Markiplier because he will actually finish the game, but along the way I can see his reactions, his false bravado, and his bumbling but adorable idiocy, all the while listening to his dreamy, deep voice.
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to Let's Play Outlast.
On the other hand, I love the Game Grumps when they play horror because their reactions are amazingly comedic, especially Dan's.
Okay, alright, we're done! This game's over!
But I would never expect them to finish the game because their goal is comedy. I'm not even convinced they're actually good at video games, but I'm here for the laughs anyway. Mark is invested in figuring out what the mystery behind the spookiness is. That's the same sense of curiosity that I have, and I feel like we're working together to solve the mystery of the game through a parasocial interaction. Whereas the Game Grumps are just interested in making comedy. So when I watch them, I feel like I'm just one of the dudes hanging out on the couch, watching each other's reactions to a scary game. Different Let's Players add their own personality to the game, and audiences engage with that art form differently, and often for different contextual reasons because of this parasocial interaction. However, there is another level of parasocial interaction that needs to be considered. Let's Players are by definition a bit more transparent than regular celebrities. Let's not forget that Let's Plays stand for Let Us Play, as in a community. The two major platforms that Let's Plays occur on right now are YouTube and Twitch, both of which are designed in a way that allows audience participation. For horror games, I think this is especially important because going through an ordeal that's traumatizing together builds community. Not to say that there was ever any real physical danger from the game, but some horror video games are fucked up. The Whistleblower DLC from Outlast was just gross and it screwed me up, but it was also something that I experienced with Markiplier and everyone else in the community. These kinds of interactions help foster communities of people centered around the creator, and through a more reciprocal parasocial relationship, we even get the community making content and in-jokes that the Let's Players then incorporate into their show and identity. Markiplier fans have even created horror games about Markiplier, which he's then played on his channel, which is this weird cycle of reflexivity. But it also shows just how unique parasocial interactions between Let's Players and their communities are compared to traditional celebrities. When live streaming, the community even gives live input into the decisions that Let's Players make in the game. Bringing this back to horror games, this means when I watch a horror game Let's Play, I'm also watching with hundreds or thousands or even potentially millions of other viewers in a shared experience. In this way, you might say that watching a Let's Play is a little bit like gaining comfort from watching a horror movie with other people. Let's Plays are one of the biggest ways that people spend their time, and not just watching them, but also attempting to create their own Let's Plays. And horror games are a great way to do that because the feeling of being scared is something that we all do. Being scared with others is not only comforting, but it's also hilarious to watch others' reactions. Watching another person play a video game doesn't reduce the impact of the game, but it does change the experience of the game. Vicarious play, parasocial interactions, and player communities are part of the experience, and although you may not be experiencing the game as intended, you are experiencing a new and just as valid art form that is highly interactive and engaging, and if you're like me, it makes scary games a little easier to watch. There is certainly no denying the history of horror games in Let's Plays, which has now become a powerful symbiotic relationship that I'm sure will continue to soil the pants of Let's Players and their collective communities for years to come. And that is why I think Let's Plays are a unique art form unto themselves and a great way to experience horror games. You know, and not just a way for me to justify not playing horror games. I'm not scared. It's a new art form. Go fuck yourself. Here are my stray thoughts. There are a bunch of really cool Let's Players out there, so if I didn't mention or show your favorite, then I apologize. If you're interested in the history of Let's Plays, there's this dope video on the Game Theory channel, and I highly recommend checking out some of the academic work and research that goes into Let's Plays. Citations are in the description. Writing an episode about YouTubers sucks because their names are always weird and they always come up in spell check. I do actually really enjoy watching horror games this way, even though I still get scared when watching. Still so much nope. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. Other than horror, I also enjoy watching Let's Plays of other video games that I suck at, like platformers. Let me know what Let's Plays you like to watch. What kind of genre, or which Let's Players? Don't forget to hit that like button like you're smashing some kind of ghost in the face. Don't forget to check out our other channel, the Cinemasters, for our weekly podcasts and lots of other cool things. And stick around for more episodes of This Is a Thing, the long and the short of it, and whatever else we got going on right here on Cinemasters Ultimate Timeline. Happy Spooktober!